Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to be talking about fraction, decimals, and percents today. We are on lesson 48, which starts on page 291. So let's jump right into some of these. We're going to talk about example number 1. We've kind of talked a little bit about percents and fractions and decimals before, but we're going to tie these all together. For example number 1, it says write 7/10 as a percent. All right, guys, so the deal with percent is that it is over 100. So our percent, like if you get 100% on a test, you get all of them correct. So a complete percent is 100. This guy, we have 7/10 equals over 100. So if we multiply this by 10, so times 10 times 10, we would get 70/100. Once we have it over 100, we could write that as a decimal, right? It would be 0.7, or we can write it as a percentage, or as a percentage, and it would be 70%, okay? Example number 2 is a little bit different. This guy says, and we get there by multiplying this number by 100, okay? So for this guy, write 2/3 as a percent. So to get from a fraction to a percent, you can put it over 1, but take a look at this. If I have 2/3 equals, if I put this over 100, I can't multiply 3 by anything to get 100. So this isn't gonna be quite as easy. The best way to handle this is we take 2/3, and just like up here, we multiplied this 7 by 100, we're gonna multiply this times 100%, okay? That gives me 200% over 3, except we don't really write it like that. What we would do, this is an improper fraction, so let's turn it into a mixed number. 3 goes into 200, well, it goes in 6 times here. 6 gives me 18 with 2, 0. This goes in 6 times with a remainder, which gives me 18 with a remainder of 2. So instead of writing a remainder 2, I'm going to write it as 2/3, because the 2 is the remainder and the 3 is what came from over here. So guys, this 2/3 as a percent is 66 and 2/3%. Percents can have fractions and decimals in them. Now, fractions cannot have decimals, and you can't really have fractions in a decimal. That would be kind of weird. So, but in percents, we can have fractions and decimals. So let's write write 0.8 as a percent, 0.8, so 8/10, right? Well, we take 8/10, and what you could, in all honesty, let's just make it easier. We take 0.8 and we multiply it by 100%. That gives us, now there's 2 zeros here. We multiply 8 times 1, which gives us 8. And then there's 2 zeros. But do you see we have one of these things behind the decimal? So we're going to move it over, the decimal over right here. So it would end up being 80%. 80%. Another way of doing that is 8/10 written as a fraction is 8/10. So we multiply the bottom to get 100, right? Multiply that by 10, multiply this by 10, we get 80 up top, we get 80%. Both ways of doing it. Basically, to get a percent, you just need to multiply by 100 and then do any division you need to do. So for example number 4, it says to complete this table, I'm on page 292. So draw out that table. We have, I'll start with the first row. I'll do one row at a time. So fraction, decimal, percent. Fraction, decimal, percent. Fraction is 1/3. How would I write this as a decimal? Well, you could sit here and we can divide. So we would do 3 goes into 1. It's not allowed, so we're going to do 10, right? And we bring up our 0, and that goes in 3 times. 9, and we subtract, we get a 1, and we bring down another 0. So 3 goes into 10, 3 times, multiply that, we get 1, bring down, you can see that this is going to start to repeat. So as a decimal, it's 0.3 with a line over it, okay? Now we know once we have something in decimal form, we just multiply it by 100. So if I multiply 33 so I take 1/3 and I multiply that by times 100%. That gives me 100/3%. Well, 100 over 3, we know we've got to divide that out. And if we did, we would end up with 33 and 1/3%, right? 33 and 1/3%, because we would do, just in case you weren't familiar with this, it's 100, let me move that over, 100, and then we divide by 3. 3 goes into 100 3 times with 9. 1, bring down the 0 3 times, and then there's a decimal here, so we're gonna put decimal there. So 3 goes in 3 times, and it would be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, repeating, right? Well, if we do this, we get 9 with a remainder of 1. So it'd be 33 and 1/3%. So 33 and 1/3%. Okay, and then, all right, so the next problem says, so the next row has a decimal of 1.5. 1.5. So we know we can go from decimal to percent by multiplying by 100. 1.5 times 100 means that we move the decimal over 1, 2 spots. So we go 1, 2, we end up with 150. We're gonna have 150%. This is like if you did a math test, you got 100% on it, but there was extra credit, and you got that 50% extra credit. So how do we write that as a fraction? Well, we have 1 and 5/10. 5/10. But be very careful here. You always have to reduce your fractions. So it's going to be 1 and 1 over 2. Okay, 1 and 1/2. All right, let's look at this last guy. We've got 60% here. 60%. Okay, so we can turn a percent into a fraction by putting it over 100. In case you forget that, there's 2 dots and a percent sign. So there's going to be 2 zeros in your fraction. So it's 60 and 100. But of course we have to reduce our fractions. So let's lob off these zeros. We have 6 over 10. We can cut both those in half and we end up with 3 over 5. So the fraction form of 60% is 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. Now decimal version, let's go back up here. When we had it over 60 over 100, that as a decimal is 0.60, but we lob off that extra 0 at the end of our decimals, right? So as a decimal, it's going to be 0.6%. All right, guys, what I want you to do is complete the table and make sure that that is at the top of your homework. I'll come around and check in with you guys to see how that's going, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you.